Um, and our next question is from a Hagar.
Hi, thanks for having us, and thank you for creating a format where we can learn a little bit more about this. My concerns mostly are with did I lose my with the nature of this type of um, assistance. I know that the city of Portland, in the last decade at least, has done a lot to try and help those who are struggling. And I know that with all the good intentions, it's also created several issues that haven't yet been handled, or we haven't yet found solutions. I realized this week Mayor Wheeler and Governor Kotek have declared a state of emergency in the state of Oregon specifically because of the homeless issue. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, with all the resources and all the funds that they have, and they have not yet managed to find a sure, safe way to make sure that our neighborhoods stay safe, our kids stay safe. We don't have issues with needles and feces and medications and people abusing each other on the street. And those of us who are also homeowners in the neighborhoods and who are paying taxes. I'm a single parent. And, for me, being safe in my home with my children obviously is a heightened concern. And I know I'm not the only one who's concerned about that. These type of, I feel like one of the major issues that we've had is once we invite people with these type of issues into a certain area, removing them from that area becomes an issue later on. In addition, other people also have a tendency to congregate around the same area. So the word goes out. And how are you feeling that you might be able to get a resolution that we have yet? I mean, look at California, look at Seattle, look at other cities that are battling. And I realize that you're saying that these are vetted people, but I also know people in the services, in social work, in outreach, in nursing, who have directly worked with hundreds and hundreds of people who are experiencing homelessness for one reason or another, whether it is addiction-based or not. And the need that is put on them to meet a certain criteria and to follow certain rules is just not something that they are willing to do. We have the homeless village in Multnomah Village, which is still yet to be fully manned. And I mean, there's many other examples. So the facilities, the efforts, the good-heartedness is out there, but I don't feel like it's always being utilized with the intention that it's intended. Okay. So how are you feeling that you'll be able to keep this down to 3 parking spots, and how are you going to be able to provide safety to the children that are in your
your 2 minutes are up.
Okay, so let me just answer your question really quick. I appreciate that. Well, like I was saying, in our Beaverton program, which we're in our 4th year now, because we don't publicize, number one, our locations, we've never had problems with anyone coming and just squatting in any of our host site programs, because the guests know that we're real particular about our guidelines and expectations, and our guests have been even more proactive than the police and others. If they were to see something that was unusual or unnormal, they would call us to let us know that they were seeing something that was disconcerting to them, because they are the people that are in our safe parking program. They are equally concerned about their safety as the neighbors and the community partners are concerned about their safety. So they don't want to have anything happen that might eliminate them from the program or cause them not to be able to move forward in securing housing and resources. And as I had mentioned earlier, I think in my opening statements, real quickly, that the profile of the safe parking individuals that that meet our criteria are not the typical kind of houseless person that's in the shelters or chronically on the streets. it's a much different profile of individuals. Like I said, a lot of times some people are even working and have jobs, but they just can't afford to get into the housing. So it's a much different kind of person, which is a more growing number of houselessness. And regarding real quick, the question regarding resources and funding, I don't know about Multnomah County and the city of Portland, but in Washington County, they haven't deemed state parking as a program that they're funding. Our Beaverton state parking program is funded by a small contract that we have with the city of Beaverton that doesn't even fully cover the amount of our person that's our employees. So we fundraisers, donors, and things like that. That's how we make up the difference to keep our state parking program open. And because of the success that we've had over the last 4 years in the city of Beaverton, we feel that committed to this program because it's helped a number of people who otherwise wouldn't meet criteria for shelters and other houses, services, and programming. And so that's why we're committed to that process.
Thank you, Vernon. And we've got a question from the chat. This one's for both you and Pastor. Is this a done deal, or are the church and Just Compassion taking into consideration the opinions of those who are opposed to this initiative as it stands right now?
I think that was, and I'll let Pastor Dorothy speak for herself, but I think we're pretty explicit on Tuesday that we're in conversation and getting information. There's been no contract signed by either the Just Compassion, Christ the King, Pastor Dorothy, or the city of Tigard. We're in the developmental stages, trying to figure out how to move forward, and we were trying to elicit as much information from those who are directly involved or who be either directly impacted or indirectly possibly impacted positively or challenged by the program itself.
I would just concur with what Vernon has said. This is not a done deal. Doesn't mean it won't happen, doesn't mean it will happen. We are in conversation with our congregation. This is the first we have begun the conversation out in our community because we do care about you as well. I know many of you don't believe that, but we do. We care about you. We care deeply about our preschool and the safety of those children and the children in the neighborhood. As Vernon has said, this program is so tightly vetted that as a pastor in this community, I would never even have considered this if those restrictions, requirements, registrations, if none of that was in place, I would not even have engaged the conversation. I have trust in Vernon Baker. I have trust in Just Compassion and Christy Anderson because I've spent time talking with them and asking these same wonderful questions you've asked. Tonight and Tuesday night were the first that we have engaged conversation with you because that's important to us. So I thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Pastor and Vernon. Our next question is from L. Matthias.
Hi, how you doing? One of the questions that I have is I'm directly involved in some of these communities that you're talking about, where the parking situation, and like other parents and stuff, I have concern of it. I understand that it's only a night thing, correct? That where they go in and they go in at night and they park at the location. I think that a better thing to do would be if we're working with the city of Tigard to allow somebody to park somewhere in order to keep them safe, I think we should use city facilities. City Hall is a place that is empty at night and they have a large parking lot that is well lit up. And if the city of Tigard wants to bring those kinds of programs into the city, let's keep it at the core of the city and not bring it into the neighborhoods. Because as a first responder, I know I've seen this in the Beaverton area at one of your park places. When you look at the crime rate in those areas, it has gone up. Yes, last night there were six thefts in a matter of 4 hours just around that area. I'm not saying it was the people in the parking area, but it has dramatically increased. And I don't want that in my neighborhood. I don't want that for the kids. And I don't want to see these cars parked in my neighborhood during the day, because it's going to happen. So if it's okay for them to park near my neighborhood, we should also be allowed to say, okay, why don't we go to Vern's house, park at Vern's house, park at Dorothy's house? That's not right. I am for helping people, but not at the expense of my community and where I live. So I think we should use city services, City Hall, the large park over by the dog park, or even, somewhere where it's not around the kids in the neighborhoods.
Okay, real quickly there, I appreciate that. Two things. I think, the increase in crime could be indirectly or directly correlated to with the increase in people who are outside and all other kinds of things. So I think there's a number of variables that may be impacting those numbers and increases. And for our programs to be in other areas, but the reason why we are looking at the areas that we're looking, because prior to even, I've been in conversations with former Mayor Snyder and now Mayor Liu for the last 4 years in terms of the increase and the concerns about people parking and living in their vehicles. And so this is not something that has just started, and people are doing it on a regular basis in all communities. And so our goal is just to help those who are very interested in changing their situations and improving them to do so. And so, if we were not to even discontinue any of our all of our safe parking programs immediately, that wouldn't stop or create a decline in vehicles being parked and people living in them.
Thanks, Vernon. Our next question is from Michelle Witt.
Hi.
Hello.
First, I want to say, I appreciate the work that you guys do, and I'm glad that you're, doing what you do. So that's first and foremost. I have several questions, so I'm just gonna kind of list them. I know I have 2 minutes, so I will list them succinctly, and then if you can address as many as possible, that would be great. My first question is, what is the process for choosing a spot? So how specifically was this spot chosen? Was it initiated by Just Compassion, or was it initiated by the church or the city? How did that come about specifically for this one? What is the cost to run the program? Could be per car, could be all 3 cars together, but just the cost that's being outlaid to provide that service on a monthly, yearly basis, however you want to say it. When will the church apply for the permit that's needed to be able to have the program? Will we be notified of when that will happen? And if the church is waiting to have this program there until the preschool is done at the church, why are you waiting for that to happen if there's not concerns about having a preschool around it? And if there are concerns about having a preschool around it, where's the concern for the other preschools or other schools that will still be remaining after yours closes? And then now that there's been so much attention to this, Vernon, one of the things you mentioned was that, this has worked before because the sites have been kept undisclosed. And I can see that because when I tried to see where it was in Beaverton, I couldn't find it. But now this is pretty public. It's already been on several news channels. So how are you going to keep the participants safe at this particular location? And how is it going to work as well as you say it has other places now that it, the location is very clearly very public and very disclosed?
Mhm.
And then my last one is, I used to live in Houston. It's one of the cities that's had the most success with homelessness. And they had a housing first approach. This is not a housing first approach. And so I'm just curious, this kind of leads back to the cost of the program versus being able to,
That's your 2
provide
minutes.
housing.
Real quickly, well, all the housing services regarding Washington County and the supportive housing services are focused. Housing first is the primary focal point. Get people housed, and then you wrap them around services. Unfortunately, it takes some time to get people into housing. I agree, getting people into housing first is a real good model. But what doesn't a lot of times is not really made known is that a lot of times people aren't ready for housing, even when they're they getting the housing wrapped around. So there's still challenges there, but it's the availability of units for people to move into, which creates a gap or a logjam, if you will. Going back to your other question about the funding piece, the safe, like I mentioned earlier, our safe parking program in Beaverton, the funding that we received from the city of Beaverton, which I think is like $45,000, maybe 53 for the entire year, doesn't cover the salary of the person that even works the program. So it's not like we get small grants other places, or private donors or contributors to Just Compassion help to defray the cost of the safe parking program. And like I mentioned before, because of its success, that's why we continue to move with that. Okay, and then I think one of your first questions was because of the locations and the number of vehicles. Well, the reason why we didn't want to do the large, robust places is because the more people you have, and we feel the same way about shelters. Anytime you get more than 40 or 50 people in a congregate shelter, you're drastically increasing the potential for challenges and things to take place. And we feel the same way about our safe parking program. By keeping them small, somewhat off the grid, it just eliminates and mitigates a lot of the things that will happen with larger pools of people parked in vehicles in larger places. And to your second to last question, yes, this by it being as publicized as it has been, and the attention that's been given, yeah, that is going to be something that we're going to have to greatly consider, because that's almost opposite, not almost, but that's opposite of our approach for our safe parking program. Is specifically for the reasons that you had mentioned, for the safety of the guests, and then also it doesn't bring attention to the community in a way where people are just coming that are not appropriate for being there. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. To our next question, we've actually received a couple in the chat that kind of have the same tenor, so I'm just going to kind of mix them together. So if there are issues that arise from reports of safety, lack of hygiene, drug use, other folks who are unauthorized showing up, what is the process? Will that people have a number to call, etc.?
Yes, well, yes, there is a 24 number that people can call. They have access to Christie's number, our resource center number, our shelter numbers, and then the police, and if it's medical, they have access to all those numbers. And like I was saying before, because of the type of person that's in our safe parking program, they are adamantly concerned about their own safety. So there's been times when I would get calls after midnight saying, well, do we allow another car in the program? There's someone here, I just want you to know. And so they're really proactive about that, because their health and safety is paramount to them as well. So again, if we can only help people understand that we're not looking at this, a shelter person, a traditional shelter person is not the same type of person that is in our safe parking programs. Because usually the people who are in the shelters don't have vehicles, they're not driving. I mean, they don't have cars and things like that. A lot of them are not employed, although we do have some people in the shelter, a few people who are employed. But for the most part, the people that are in our shelters are not employed, they don't have transportation, and they're not in the same places and spaces in terms of their time of being houseless as those who are in the safe parking program.
Thank you, Vernon. So our next question will be someone speaking. This will be Lisa D.
Hi, first I want to thank you. Oops, I'll start your video. Okay. Hi, thank you very much for having this forum. I think it's really great to be able to talk about this in a discussion manner. And so I appreciate this opportunity. I want to say that I'm a retired social worker, and I have a lot of experience working with the homeless in Washington County, very familiar with the homeless population in Tigard as well. I do have several questions that I need to ask. And one of them is, do individuals have to be employed to be given a slot to park? And also, I know that housing is very difficult to get into. So I want to know what the process is and how much time you're allowing them to find housing. And as far as their case management, where will they be receiving the case management? And one more question, is there going to be staff there overnight to monitor the site?
Okay. In terms of the overnight monitoring, no, there won't be staff physically on site monitoring them. But like I was saying on Tuesday, we have a great relationship with both the city of Beaverton and the city of Tiger Police, and they are aware of where all of our sites are, and they monitor our sites on a regular basis. As far as do people have to be employed to be in the safe parking program? No, they don't have to be employed, but their goals and objectives, if they're not employed, is to get employed and eliminate whatever barriers they have so that they can be housed. And our program is 3 to 5 months. If someone is in their 5th month and they're real close to getting housed or making significant progress to get housed, then we might extend it a little while because they are making good progress. And then I think the other question was, they don't have to be employed. Oh, the case management services for the most part will be done in our resource access center on 5th, not on 5th, but on Hall and Knoll at our resource center there. And then in the Beaverton location, all of the services are provided in our shelter in the day side, in the resource side of the shelter. The case managers meet their guests from the safe parking program in there, and they meet with other community partners and who are working with our guests as well.
Thank you, Vernon. So our next question again from the folks speaking will be Ruth Ann.
I'm happy to have the opportunity to ask a question. I apologize if I was distracted, and Vernon, you already answered this question. Would you describe the vetting process to us, please?
Okay. The vetting process, the first thing we do when we get people that submit applications or inquire and we're placed on the wait list is that we do a criminal background check to make sure that people don't have felonies or person-to-person crimes. We try to eliminate as much as we can through the background check. Then they fill out sort of a survey or a questionnaire that helps us to understand what their goals and objectives are and how they feel like they're going to have by being in our program. That will help. And then after that, and they go through all of our program, our expectations, our rules and guidelines. Then they sign basically a code of conduct that they were going to agree and adhere to those things. And then the first month is a provisional month to see how they're doing with all of the things that we've asked them to do and they have agreed to do and committed to do. And then after that first month, if things are moving forward and they're doing all the things that we've asked them to do, then they will become, well, not permanent, but they will become regular guests in our safe parking program for the additional 4 months or until they either get housed or get the needs met so that they can move on somewhere else where they can get housed. Like I mentioned earlier, we've had situations where people just needed to be able to stay in our safe parking long enough to get a couple of paychecks and things like that, so they can save up enough money to relocate in other places. So there's multiple ways in which they can come through our program, but that's pretty much the vetting process. And I hope I answered your question.
Thanks, Vernon. Let's see. I'm going to do a question from the chat, but it's going to take me a second. They're coming in fast and furious. Here's a question. The program is in Beaverton, and it seems to be, and it has been successful there. How were the neighbors of the Beaverton Center able to come and trust the program?
Well, like we had said before, the city of Beaverton, unlike the difference between the city of Beaverton, our programs in Beaverton and in Tigard, the city of Beaverton, they researched and identified the locations. And then myself and one of the city employees went and met with, if it was a church, the church leadership and some members and people that were like in a 2 to 3 block radius of the potential location. And we had question and answers, such as we're doing now, and then we would move forward. What's really surprisingly about the majority of our sites is that people in the community and some of the neighbors are even helping out with some of our guests. There was a couple of winters ago, it was pretty cold, and some people were just, they were just afraid to be in a shelter, and there was no non-congregate places for them to go, and we didn't have that level of funding to spend for hotels and things like that, because like I said, we're doing this basically on our own to a large degree. And so they would bring blankets out and hot tea and coffee and stuff like that for those individuals. So it's sort of like a small community in and of itself in those kind of areas. So they've been very welcoming and embracing with our guests and also our program.
Thank you, Vernon. Our next question will be from someone who's speaking, Gary.
Yes. Hello. This question is it's actually just a statement for Pastor Dorothy. As a church leader, I'd ask that I'm assuming you do care about the community. As you can tell from the very public and passionate turnout, that most of the community does not like this idea of Bull Mountain and the Tigard area. And I just ask that you do listen to your community and not proceed with this program. If you don't care about the community and you care about our thoughts, then I question your motives. And also, and this is a very specific question for Pastor Dorothy. I hear the word compassion over and over again here. And I ask, what is compassionate about knowingly allowing someone to sleep in their car or a tent overnight in a cold parking lot, urinating in a cold outhouse? Have you considered having these individuals stay in your church where it's warm, or even better, actually better idea, putting an extra collection plate out on a Sunday, collecting some money for these individuals to be able to stay in a nice, clean hotel, a safe hotel, rather than in our backyard in our community? And that's a question for Pastor Dorothy, and I'd like to hear an answer if possible. Thank you.
Let me see if I get these in the right order. First of all, your first question was, do I care about the people in this community? Yes, I deeply care about the people in this community, including those who are houseless, because they're part of our community. You said that the majority of folks in the community do not want this to happen. I will, if I had time and I had the capability right this minute on this call, I would read to you the hundreds of letters in support that stand right alongside the dozens that are in opposition. So to characterize this as fully unsupported in the community is not totally accurate. In terms of what could we do elsewise, there certainly might be some other ways we could support the houseless here at Christ the King, because of our firm belief that we are to be helping our vulnerable neighbors. And I mean neighbors. As Vernon said, many of the folks who are in the Just Compassion program at the Just Compassion shelter on Hall Boulevard, they are our neighbors. They are our Tigard neighbors. The people who are living in the Just Compassion parking program in Beaverton are Beaverton and Tigard and Washington County residents. They live here too. As I said on Tuesday night to some of you, the Family Promise had a program where congregations could open their doors for a given period of time to let folks rest indoors. COVID, of course, shut that down. Post-COVID, things have changed dramatically. This is not a done deal. Our congregation is supporting the conversation moving forward of how to make this happen. Thank you for the questions. I hope that I have answered them. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer them as honestly as I can.
And can
Thank
I
you,
just add
Pastor.
something to that statement really quick, Pastor Dorothy? To the gentleman's question about in our neighborhoods, one of the questions that was raised to me by one of our houseless individuals about 3 years ago in regards to us getting them support for housing. We found places in Portland, Hillsborough, and somewhere else farther west. And they were like, I may not have a house, but Tigard is my home. If when I was inside had a house or apartment, it was in Tigard. So if I'm going to be houseless, I choose to be in my community, in my neighborhood. I won't accept services and resources anywhere other than my community. And that left me speechless because we were working in places outside of people's individual communities and where they call home. And so we began to factor that in a lot more to our planning and how we work with people, because we've gotten people services in other areas, and about 75–80% of the time they matriculate back to Tigard because this is where they want to be. They've actually given up housing so that they can be in the area that they call home.
Thanks, Vernon. Just a reminder to direct any questions to me. I'm keeping track of them, trying to group up similar ones. And I'm going to answer a question that I think is best answered by the city. So there's been some questions about why aren't we using city parking lots? And there's a couple of factors that are at play. One, our city parking lots are very full. While this is an evening program, folks do have access during the day, and there's also, and these are designated spots, and there's porta potties, and our parking lots are very full. But we're continuing to evaluate that. Another piece of the concern is that we also, within the city of Tigard, need to allow for folks to be able to camp in places. This is a court decision and a state law. So you might be aware that in July 1, 2023, we passed what's called a time, place, manner ordinance, which lists the time, places, and manners in which people can camp outside in an effort to not go out into to let people camp in places that weren't residential or commercial. We allowed for camping on city property. One of the other restrictions within the time, place, manner ordinance is that if there is an alternative shelter at a site, then you cannot camp within 500 feet of that site. So we do run into a conflict between where we would then allow people to camp if we are allowing safe lots on our city parking lots. Again, these are all options that are on the table. We're continuing to look at safe lots in the Tigard parking lots. And I will turn over to Rosanna for the next voice question.
Yes, hello, Rosanna Sutherland, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Rosanna Sutherland, and I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. My first question is about drug testing. Again, we talked about this yesterday and the other night at the meeting, but could you commit to make it mandatory weekly drug testing for these people if this program really happens at a location at this church? Second question, the applicants for this program, are they former residents of Tigard? Like, were they like former renters or homeowners, or lived with a homeowner or a renter? Like, did they have their former address in Tigard? Or will they be coming from Portland, Beaverton, etc., and then become residents of Tigard? Is that taken into account at all?
Yes, I'll answer the second part of your question first. Yes, that is taken into account. The reason why we wanted to expand into Tigard was because we were seeing more and more people in Tigard who were parking and living in their vehicles. And to whether they were formerly living in Tigard. Prior to that, some yes, some no, but they have made a decision that that's where they wanted to be. And that's where they wanted to live. So that's where they wanted to receive services and get into housing. We have, like I said, 5 case managers their whole jobs are getting people housed. And some of their challenges is that in the Tigard area, trying to find housing outside of Tigard that people are willing to go to is real difficult because they want to live in Tigard. They're not interested in living in Beaverton, Hillsboro, and other places, and even in Portland, but they want to stay in their own communities. So, so that is something that we do factor in with that. And then the first question, let me see, it was, let me try to, will you say that one more time? Can you unmute so she can ask that first question real quick one more time?
I think it was Rosanna, and she'll need to be unmuted. There we go.
Yes, so can we make mandatory drug tests if
Okay.
this passes, like weekly mandatory drug tests? I think something like that would make the community more at ease.
Okay.
If that would be possible and you could commit to that.
Well, we could definitely commit to drug testing. Now, I don't, our county contracts prohibit us for doing that in our shelters, congregate and non-congregate shelters, because they're low barrier. And in low barrier programs, you can't do that level of engagement because there's a low barrier. And so there's rules and criteria that low barrier shelters and houseless programs have to adhere to. The Safe Parking Program doesn't have a designation as of yet because it receives no funding from Washington County for it. So that would be something that we could look into, and if it was something that was allowable, we can definitely have either onboarding testing and then random testing, or reasonable. I don't know about the every week, because if a person is gainfully employed and working and just happen to be living in their vehicles, that could be that's almost like an invasion upon them, just because I'm outside and I'm doing everything I can and I'm working and just happen to be living in my vehicle. Now I'm having to subject myself to even more things that are somewhat can be construed or perceived as dehumanizing or degrading or those kind of things. So we want to factor that in too, because a lot of people, they have respect and they're very concerned about how they're perceived and wanting to improve their situations. But all of those things are definitely things that we can definitely look into and see what would be applicable and appropriate for us to do moving forward.
Thank you, Vernon. Let's see, next will be a voice question from S.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I have a few questions. Can I ask a couple, or do I have to do a big list?
Can you ask a couple, or do you have to do a list? No.
Well, I have a few. First of all, I want to say I was at the meeting, and safety is really important to me. I saved a lot of money through a lot of time to live in this neighborhood. I'm very close to the church. I feel like it took a lot to be there. I pay a lot in taxes and everything else, and I do care. I am compassionate. But because I have done that, I feel now I'm going to be in a unsafe area. And the safety question is really important to me. Not testing for drugs is a problem, and I know you addressed that. The apartment manager across the street talked about that they have problems and they are not getting the police to be involved. And if there is no security at night, I don't see the police coming over there and watching over that. And it's not my job to watch out for that. I don't want to be the neighbor that has to see what's going on and, call and get help or whatever. And I understand these people, who knows, how that's going to turn out. But I feel that it can escalate, like the guy said earlier, that it could be possible that you bring this in and then more people, and it just, he saw through what he was doing as being a paramedic or whatever, that happened. So security is the problem for me. There was a gentleman that lived across in that parking lot for several months in a camper. And I have grandkids that come over, and I felt very uncomfortable, and he never was moved. So I have experience living in this neighborhood to see what happens. So that, I don't know what happened there. I feel like clearly the citizens that live around here opposed it and are opposing it more than not. And I'm sorry for that. I understand that's an informational meeting.
That's
I
your
feel
2 minutes.
our voice should be heard. And are any funds changing hands? Tax incentives from the county, state, property owners? It might not be you're going to get money in your pocket, but how's that being? What's happening? There's got to be something.
Okay, to the last point, no, it doesn't have to be something. There's no tax credits or anything like that. All of our sites that are in our safe parking program in Beaverton don't receive anything. They have expressed out of their goodwill and wanting to help to be a part of our safe parking program. Like I was saying, our funding doesn't even cover the salary of our staffs that work in the state parking program. So there's no money or finances or anything like that changing hands. I just saw a question in the chat regarding how much money Christ the King is receiving for being a part of this. No one's receiving money for participating in the program for host sites or anything like that. To your question about the safety, I understand the concerns. The vehicle that was parked there for months upon months, that's unfortunate, but that's what we're seeing. And that's why we're wanting to get involved, because if we can get involved, we can help mitigate some of those things. We're working with our outreach team are working with a couple of situations right now that's not even in our jurisdiction, so to speak, trying to help them get some RVs that have been abandoned, and one person is still living in an RV off of their property, because that's not okay, and trying to link them up with services and resources that we can possibly provide for them. So even if we weren't at Christ the King, those people who you're concerned about will still be there. But by us having a presence there, that can help to encourage and be engaged with those individuals who are not even in the program. And all I can do as far as our past experiences is refer to our Beaverton locations. We haven't had those kinds of things haven't transpired. And I don't think it's by luck or coincidence, but it's by the commitment that the whole sites have had and the level of engagement our staff have with those individuals in our program, and the eager commitment of those in our safe parking programs to get out of their vehicles and back into housing. Like I was saying, the people that are in our program, our safe parking program, are not the same profile of a person that's in our shelters or in our street outreach programs. They're two totally kinds of people.
Thank you, Vernon. And I've got a question actually for the pastor. So based on the information that we've heard tonight, Pastor Dorothy, are you willing to consider using the main parking lot in front of the building rather than those that are closer to the homes behind the church? The main parking lot has better lighting and can also facilitate the church and to assist those in case they need.
Thank you for that absolutely wonderful question. That is a big point that I've been trying to make Tuesday night and tonight, and with everyone else I have encountered who's come into the church to support this program or to ask further questions. We have not made a decision about where, if we choose to move forward with this, where it will land. We're looking primarily at a spot that will be as unobtrusive as possible, as clearly as out of sight for safety reasons and aesthetic reasons that you're all raising. So no, the site has not been chosen. The flyer that went around early last week that declared it as a large encampment on the upper parking lot didn't come from us, and that question has not been answered. Yes, we would consider putting it on the lower parking lot, up against the shrubs. We'd consider putting it on the little small groups of parking stalls that face the front of our building out of the site. We have not decided when this would start. We don't even know if it's going to start. We want to share the information with all of you. And I so much appreciate you all being here tonight to hear more information about this. Thanks, Kim, for that question.
Thank you, Pastor. And I have another one. The chat is backing up, so we're going to do a couple of these in a row. So I have a question that says that I'm hearing that people are assuming that folks will be in the program are outsiders with little recognition, but they're part of our community already, and some have kids, some have jobs. Housing costs are sky high, and they're just not able to make it work and need help. My question is, how can we as neighbors do more to support this program? Vernon?
There's several ways. One, just having the mind to want to help with what's going on, and there's a myriad of ways that people can help and support Just Compassion. You can go to our website. You can stop by our resource center, or give us a call and let us know what your interests or your focus areas of where you would like to help and be a support is, and we will definitely find a place for you to contribute whatever your skills, abilities, and your talents and what you would like to do to the betterment of those that we're providing services and resources to. And I appreciate the acknowledgement of them. Those individuals are our neighbors as far as our Tigard citizens are concerned, and this is their home. And again, I can't emphasize enough how many times I have been corrected by our guests by saying, no, this is my home and this is where I want to be. We even changed our vernacular in our programming language, in our contract languages, in our proposal languages. We don't use the word homeless anymore. We use houseless, because it was made very clear to us by our guests that they didn't have a house, but their home was Tigard. So please don't call us homeless. Our home is in Tigard. We just don't have a house.
Thank you, Vernon. So the other question is, you spoke specifically about program participants having barriers to housing, and that part of the program is helping them address those. Can you elaborate more on what those barriers are? Are they based on availability or not meeting criteria to be approved for housing, combination, other barriers?
Everything that you've mentioned and then some. Sometimes people have had, some bad luck, if you will, or made poor choices and decisions, and they've either been evicted or they've lost a job or other things have happened. And so with the low inventory, number one, and then with any kind of concerns or issues on your background, maybe you have some evictions or some other things going on, that's a possibility. And then also we have people who are in the safe parking program. We've had people in the safe parking program who were fleeing domestic violence situations, and they had other things going on, which put them in harm's way, and they were on waiting lists for domestic violence services. So, it's a myriad of reasons as to why people, have barriers. But I will say that some of,
Can we take down the screen share? Thank you.
So with that, so there's a myriad of reasons why people have barriers. Some of them are self-imposed, some of them are just life happening, so it's a multiplicity of things.
Thank you, Vernon. So your next question, we'll do another voice question. Michelle Witt, please.
If I could please interject, if you choose to share a screen for any reason and you continue to do so, we will shut the meeting down. Go ahead.
Michelle.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make one recommendation. I noticed, like, when I asked several questions and when other people have asked more than one question, sometimes it gets lost what questions we ask. So I don't know if someone could maybe write them down while we're doing it. That might be helpful. So I'm going to come back to a few of the specific ones that I didn't really feel were directly answered. And the first one was, I mean, if we're not allowed to have a back and forth, we kind of have to like vomit them to you, right? And then hear them back. So I'm just going to do that because I guess that's what we're doing. But how was this specific spot chosen to be considered?
Okay, I remember that question very clearly.
Yeah.
Well, what we kind of canvassed the community, looking for places that would that met the criteria of what we've done in Beaverton. We were sort of trying to mirror what we're doing in Beaverton. Then we reached out to individuals to see if they were interested, and then we moved from there. None of our host sites approached us. We, in the city of Beaverton, they approached the sites that they thought were appropriate and were willing and open. And that's what we are doing in the city of Tigard as well.
Okay.
So Christ the King did not approach us, we approached them.
Okay, thank you for answering that directly. The next one was, what is the cost to run the program at the site?
Okay, the cost to run the program at the site, I don't have the budget numbers in front of me.
Vernon, I can take that one. I've got the budget numbers.
Okay.
Yep, so the cost to run 3 sites is about $100,000. This is rough math. About $30,000 of that is funded through a grant that Just Compassion received. If this program moves forward, it would be $65,000 for the city of Tigard. And that, like I said, that would be enough to run 3 different sites across Tigard, which was the goal. And a lot of that has to do with hiring the case manager is the bulk of that cost. And that case manager can't really hire a third, so we'd want to hire 1 case manager and then add sites as we move forward.
And is that per year or per month or what?
Oh yeah, great question. That is a annual cost for running 3 sites.
100,000. And when you say 3 sites, you mean 3 parking sites, not the 3 sites at this parking location.
Exactly.
Yes.
3 safe parking lots.
Yes.
Okay. And then will the neighbors be notified, you know, and the people that have participated in these meetings, would we be notified if the church applied for a permit to have the program? And my understanding is they have to apply for a permit at the city. Would we all be notified when that hearing would happen or when that permit would be requested?
So the permit process for this particular type of site does not require some sort of public hearing, but we will continue to work with the neighbors and do a lot of outreach over the coming months as we think about and talk about moving forward. I want to just really emphasize that these conversations this week are the first conversations of many, not the last conversations or the last opportunities for people to give input on the site and the program.
You're
Oh,
muted.
can you unmute Michelle for one last question?
Thank you. I just had one final question that I didn't feel like was addressed, and this is for Pastor Dorothy. Why is the church waiting until the preschool is closed to have the program if there aren't concerns, I guess, or similar concerns for safety and things like that, having a preschool nearby?
Michelle, that's a really good question, and it has been asked many times, and I guess I haven't answered it sufficiently. We have been in conversation about what our mission and ministry is as Christians and as followers of Jesus. One of them has been for children. We love the children we have here. When teacher Heidi told us she was retiring at the end of this school year, that's when we began to consider what other ministries we could open. The ministry of the food bank has been on the property for years, very successfully. They're coming onto the property on a regular basis, not just on Thursday afternoons when the food bank is open. These are the same, if you will, the same people who will be spending the night in their vehicles. They are people who are down on their luck. They're vulnerable. They need to be cared for. As far as the children go, because of the immediate proximity of the children, that's why we chose not to put the Safe Park or any kind of homeless shelter, any kind of homeless engagement, while the preschool is still operating. Yes, it looks like a concern. It looks like we don't care about the neighbors, but we do. And when I talk about the proximity of the preschool, I'm talking about the parking stalls right across from the doorway where the children enter is a possibility of where we would put this. We would put it on the front lot, still children would be in and out. That's a very close proximity. I believe, as Vernon Baker believes, that the people who are living in this Safe Park program opportunity are not a danger to children.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes.
Going to our next question, we'll go back to the chat. So if this program does go into place and is successful, are there metrics to measure success, like safety, success rate of folks getting into housing? And then if those metrics are not met, is closing down the program a possibility? Or is it something that just once started, it will continue regardless of results?
All of our programs are reviewed on an annual basis to see the appropriateness, how successful they've been, and whether or not it's viable to continue in our programming. You'll see some of those numbers if you would like for Kim to send you our annual report for our 2021-22 year of our safe parking program in Beaverton. And you can see what some of those metrics look like. But again, because of the fact that we are not receiving a lot of funding for our safe parking program, we've been trying to expand our funding for this in a myriad of ways. But I guarantee you, if it was not successful in working, the resources that we're having to creatively come up with to sustain our safe parking program will be reallocated in the other areas. So because of its success in the city of Beaverton, again, that's why we're continuing to implement that program in Beaverton, knowing that we're going to have to do outreach and raise funding in as many creative ways as we can.
Thanks, Vernon. Let's see. Our next question is, so there are already houseless folks who are frequenting the church property. How will you not allow them on the property, or how will you address them on their property? And do you agree that the program will just attract more houseless individuals to the property?
Okay, I'll answer the last question first. That hasn't been the case, or in 4 years in the city of Beaverton. We're having these programs on in different areas that they attract more houseless individuals. Again, because the houseless individuals don't know that they're there. Secondly, as it relates to those people who are already showing up, or that's the area that they have chosen that they're going to hang, that they're going to live in outside. What we would do is send our outreach coordinators to those locations and then encourage them to come to our resource center to receive services and possibly get them on our shelter wait list so that they can get into shelter so that they won't be outside. Because our goal is to make sure that we get as many people inside as we can, whether it be through our safe parking program, through our shelter program, and when appropriate, into a non-congregate shelter environment as well. So we would do everything that we can to mitigate those additional individuals who are just hanging out there. And by our presence being there as an organization, I think that will help tremendously to give those individuals alternative places to go where they can be safe, and it will be less infringement upon the community and the neighbors.
And Vernon, might I add that there are contact folks at the church, and myself included, who will know the Safe Park residents, if you will, and we also know who those individuals are who wander onto our site regularly and take up a place to sleep. I actually, Sunday morning a week ago, I came into the sanctuary here, and there was a gentleman sleeping out in our courtyard, and I thankfully had contact with the Tigard PD, and they were able to remove him immediately. Those who don't have, really, Nick, come on. Those who don't have permission to be here, we move them along.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah.
Another question for you. Is it possible to schedule a meeting between the community and the board of the church so the community can talk about their concerns? I do believe several members of your board are here tonight. Is that correct?
And we're here on Tuesday, yes. And they are volunteers who I respect and admire with all I have. And yes, we are willing to talk about that as an option. Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. And I'll take a voice question. Grace, if you wouldn't mind unmuting. Sent you a request to unmute. All right. Oh. Okay, thank
That
you.
work?
Yes.
Hi, I work in the housing providing industry and I work really closely with all 3 counties with the residential long-term rental assistance program. And I've seen a lot of success with that. And I'm curious, you know, I've also seen that there's softening in the occupancy rates for apartments. So I do see a lot of availability. And I'm curious if you guys are connected with those programs. My experience has been that it's been pretty speedy to get people into these programs. A job is not required. The voucher actually takes care of that. And we are required by the rules with screening now to consider criminal backgrounds on a case-by-case basis. So I feel like there's a lot of concessions, and coupled with that, talking about the budget for this program, just some simple quick math for $100,000 and 15 families that we're helping, that's $6,000 per family. And
Well,
there's
that's only, to clarify that, there's
Mhm.
there's more than 15 that will be there a year, because they could be transitioning 2 to 3 months at a time. So we could cycle through 25, 30, or 40 families in a year. So
Okay.
that's if we only have 15 families for the entire year, that's not going to be the case. It'll at least be double that.
Okay, so at least double that. That's still 50 nights per family at an extended stay hotel. I know we're all expending a lot of energy being here talking about this. I think I have a lot of compassion for the houseless, and I just think, I wonder if those resources might be better spent rather than us, you know, this community engagement. I'm glad that we're all talking about it, but perhaps that might be that there might be a more efficient use of these resources to get these people inside rather than in their cars to get them transitioned to housing. So my 2 questions: are you guys working with the ARLA program?
Yes, we
Have
are.
you had barriers with that? What are those issues? As a landlord, I've seen a lot of success with it. And then the other question of, are there maybe more efficient ways to spend this funding to get people inside rather than in their cars?
Well, the goal, real quickly to the second question, getting people out of their cars is the quickest, is our main goal.
Sure.
With Arla, our case, like I was saying earlier, we have 5 case managers who all have a caseload of 20 individuals. With the vouchers, one of the biggest challenges that we have is that people who are houseless have expectations, and they have certain areas and where they want to live and where they don't want to live. If I had a dollar for every time one of our case managers took a guest to a location, they refuse. I don't want to live in this. I don't like this. So they have to be willing to move in and accept those places that are available. So yeah, we know that there's we work with our vouchers on a daily basis, and it's not the fact that there's not available units, but our guests have to be willing to want to live there. And so again, a lot of people are not willing to. If they're in Tigard, they don't want to live outside of Tigard. They want to live in Tigard. And so that's one of the another barrier and hurdle that we grapple with on a daily basis, trying to convince them that maybe they can move in a year or 2 and have their voucher transferred. We've actually had people who have moved, gotten people into housing, but because it wasn't where they wanted to, they just left. And we have spent $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on these individuals, getting them into housing, and then they exited because they didn't want to be in those locations. So yeah, I hear what I hear, and I agree 100% with the premise of what you're saying. But it's more to it than just us finding them places. They have to be willing and wanting to live in those places that we find for them.
Thank you, Vernon. Let's see, we do have a question in the chat talking about the funding allocation for this program requirement, council approval, planning commission approval. I think I got these questions also via email. So we're still developing that answer, and we'll get back to folks about that at a later date. Exactly how that funding could go into place. And then I got a voice question here from Marie W.
Marie went away.
Oh no.
Hello?
She's just.
Oh, she's there.
Hello?
Okay, there. Thank you. I don't know, somebody else is unmuted as well. I don't know who that is. Hi, thank you so much for this meeting and so thoughtfully listening to and responding to people's questions. I appreciate the aspects of the conversation that are about community. You know, we all do better when we're in a community that supports us, and we all, whether we're housed or not, do better when we feel safe. This to me sounds like a safe place for someone who is without a house to be, and the location along a transit line and a short walk to the grocery store seems really advantageous to me. So I just wanted to express my support and also say that I'm sure that many people who are participating today have had hard times. I know I've been on hard times many years ago and had to rely on support from others in order to be safely housed for a period of time. And I know other people who have as well. I'm fortunate now. I live on Bull Mountain, and I have a nice home and a nice life. But I want to be supportive of other tigered neighbors who are not as fortunate. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to the church for considering this and for acting on their faith, for taking action from their faith. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Marie. Let's see, let's take another question. David Nikolai.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say, I live in King City. My youngest daughter attends preschool at St. James, which is, a stone's throw away from Christ the King.
Mhm.
And start my video. Okay, sure. And I also attend a church in Beaverton where there has been a safe parking program for a couple years now. And I just want to say that I'm not worried about my daughter's safety in this program as because of this program, because at the church I attend, there's been a preschool that has continued to operate while the same program is there. The church has not been negatively impacted by this program, nor to my knowledge has the surrounding community been negatively impacted by this program. So I think, and there were still more concerns raised when the church started this program by the immediate community, and the worst case scenarios people predicted did not happen. So I just want to say, for those of you who are worried about this program, I've been directly involved with the church I attend in Beaverton, and I've not seen negative consequences from it.
Thank you. Let's see, and I've got a question from the chat asking Vernon, how do you work with TTSD, and how can we best support people who have families, so children who might be living in their vehicles?
Say that first part again, Kim, how to work with families with what?
How with children who are living in vehicles? How does your program help support those?
Well, what we do, we prioritize them. We contact Family Promise and other organizations that work with families specifically, and we try to get them transitioned from if they're in the safe parking program to we'll just hold them on a temporary basis until a spot opens up in one of those other programs that are more appropriate for families, because we our focus and goals our focus and are adults, single adults, or just adults in general, and if we do come across families, we try to get them into other programming as soon as possible.
Thank you, Vernon. Let's see, a question from the voice. Nick B, please.
Yes, thanks. So two parts. First, kind of a comment. I fairly new to Bull Mountain, moved up from Portland, had some very negative experiences. Just kind of the situation in Portland is pretty crazy. And I do have a lot of compassion for the houseless. And as many people have expressed, also have concern for myself, my family, whatnot. That leads to the comment of, I'm actually on the waiting list for, I have a child who's turning 3 this month, on the waiting list for the preschool at the Episcopal Church. And this gives me major pause, if it were to go through. So, you know, there's the, yeah, just what it brings up in for me. I think as a lot of people have expressed this evening, and I imagine the other evening, you know, people want to feel safe in their community. And I think that it's been very clearly articulated that there are a lot of safeguards being put in place. But I'm also not hearing, you know, as other people have expressed, in terms of drug testing and other safeguards. There are some pieces being put into place, but not enough to make myself feel completely safe with the direction. The other piece is for the city of Portland as a question is, I'm wondering, so it was expressed that there's a daytime component of this program, and that being the reason that the city can't utilize city lots for this program. I'm wondering, you know, it seems like the footprint, so to speak, of a 3-car program would be, or site would be under 1,000 square feet. I just don't quite understand why, as other people have expressed, why it can't be farther away from residential neighborhood, more in an industrial part of the town, or close to downtown, whatnot. And, you know,
2 minutes.
Flatten out some land, put up some electricity and put the, you know, set it up downtown. I just don't quite understand how that land can't be found elsewhere.
Thank you for the question. I can address the city-owned land piece, which is that there is not a lot of land available around downtown Tigard, but we will continue to explore using our parking lots. As far as industrial and commercial land, as we've previously mentioned, the church is accepting no funding for the program, which is keeping the costs very low. If we went with commercial or industrial land or purchasing property, that would increase the cost significantly for this program, as well as having to find a willing landlord. So still all options that are on the table, if there are, those are out there, but we are definitely constrained by those impacts. Thank you all very much for coming this evening. We are going to end questions here. Again, like I said, this is the beginning of a conversation, and I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Dorothy for our final remarks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christy, for your great managing of this Zoom meeting tonight. And thank you to Tim and Jonathan for their help as well. Thank you all for being here tonight. Your questions and your comments are extremely helpful. As Kim said, we've just begun the conversation outside of, you know, in our community, and we really appreciate your input. We apologize for the Zoom limit tonight. That was unintentional oversight on our part. I really, truly believed we had Zoom for 300. We don't normally use that many on Sunday morning. We will make that change in the future. We have recorded this session and Tim will post it to our social media where you'll find it in the next couple of days. While we've been talking for the last 90 minutes, I've received 8 to 10 emails and phone messages from neighbors just like you. 7 of those have been in support of the program. We will be hosting additional meetings in the future. Keep watching. We'll put it out on our social media and on our website. It's not over. It's not finished. And please rest assured that we really love your children. We want them to be safe. We want you to be safe. And we want our unhoused neighbors to be safe. And that's why we want them here. Any other comment you would like to make, Vernon? We're ready to go out on this.
I just want to appreciate you, Pastor Dorothy, and all those that work with you, Kim, Christy, and then all the community partners and the neighbors for taking this time out to have a productive, positive interaction and discussion about our safe parking program, whether you're for it or you're not. Just being able to have a real positive dialogue and interaction is always good, because that's how we grow. And at the end of the day, I do believe we all want the same thing in terms of people being inside versus outside. It's just we may just see things a little differently in terms of how they get there. But just knowing that we're all compassionate enough about those who are less fortunate than we are is a good feeling. So thank you.
Thank you all and good night.